Hi, I'm Sarah Bowie with Bowie Financial, and today, Zima wants to do this too. Today we're going to make gluten-free pralines, because they're always gluten-free, with pecans in them. And we're going to talk about alphabet soup. Zuma, come on up. Everyone, this is Zuma, our resident dog. Now get out of here. So we're going to talk about alphabet soup, and essentially alphabet soup is all the acronyms we use in our industry. So things like Rrsp, RIF, LIRA, TFSA, LIF. Yeah, see, she's looking at me like, what is that stuff? Most people don't know, and they don't know why these acronyms exist, and do I put my money here, do I put money there? So I'm going to make this. There's going to be a 10-minute lull where I'm kind of letting stuff set, and then I'll really go into the registered account verbiage. So here we go. So pralines, here's what you need. You need 2 cups of pecans. You need some vanilla. I use pure vanilla because I heard bad stuff about not pure vanilla. I use brown sugar, regular sugar. Pralines are basically sugar. There's some condensed milk over here. There's a little bit of maple syrup. So traditionally, you would use corn syrup. That's not something people usually have in their house in Canada. Usually we have maple syrup. So I've always made them maple syrup. We're also going to need 2 tablespoons of butter, which I'm going to put in the pan right now. And I've got the heat on to a medium-high level here. You're also going to need parchment paper. These never go in the oven. They're just going to set on whatever counter. So parchment paper is great for that. Some people say wax paper, but anyway, I've had a better success rate with this. So here we go. So first thing we're going to do is butter the pan. And so when we say butter the pan, it's put all the butter in the pan and then kind of move it around. And it just makes it so things aren't sticking as much, and you can kind of fold the ingredients in much more easily. So we're going to let that go on. And I have another sidekick here with me today. A lot of you know Jessica. She is our branding manager here at Bowie Financial, and she's being camera shy today, but she's awesome. So she's going to keep me accountable by asking some questions. So I don't only talk about gluten-free pecan pralines, but we also talk about registered accounts, because this is not just about fun, right? It's a serious thing we're doing here. So do you have any questions for me while I melt some butter?
I sure do.
Right.
Hi, everybody. So, Sarah, what is a registered account and what isn't it? And
What defines one? Yeah, so registered account, right? For me and everyone who works in our office, that's an easy, wow, registered accounts, blah, blah, blah. What a registered account is an account that has extra rules from the government. So a TFSA is a registered account, an Rrsp, a LIRA. That's how they all start and how they start taking income. Now, the reason they're called registered is because the CRA knows that you have them. There's only so much room in those accounts. LIRAs are used for any sort of pension wind down, typically. So that's what makes them registered, is the government knows about them. The government comes out with these rules and they say, okay, that's how it is. This is registered with the government. That's that.
all right.
Well, I'm going to do a little bit of cooking here. So I should show you. I've got this butter melted here. And I don't know if it's really 2 tablespoons. I'm just bad at measuring. But it always works out just fine. So we'll let that kind of sit here for a second, and then we're going to start adding our stuff. So let's go ahead and add the sugars to this. And Oh, you know what? Something I forgot to do right in the beginning, but these are totally forgiving, is put 1 teaspoon of vanilla in with these pecans, and it just gives them some flavor. So 1 tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So I know if I fill up this tablespoon about 1/3 of the way, I'm good to go. There we go. So we're just kind of flavoring it. And the recipe that I've always used, I've been tweaking, and I started with 1.5 cups of pecans. So if you like more of the kind of fudgy bits of praline, then you could use less pecans. I like the pecan bits, so I use 2 cups. So there we go. That's happening. Get rid of this vanilla over here. I'm not going to use it anymore. There. So now 1.5 cups of brown sugar. So here we go. We got 1. Ooh, it's starting to sizzle. And we've got 1/2. And I do pack the brown sugar. I mean, it just gives you more sugar for your pralines. Why wouldn't you? And then white sugar. Same thing. 1.5 cups. So there we go. We got 1. We got 1/2. Now, it does call to add salt, and I suggest it if you don't add salted butter. If you just use regular butter, throw some salt in there. Otherwise, you're good to go. So that's done. And then we're gonna add the maple syrup a little bit later, but right now we can add the evaporated milk because otherwise we're gonna end up with like just straight up caramelly burnt sugar, right? Here we go. And then now we mix and mix and mix, and I can hear it over here. It's got a little bit of sizzle to it, eh? But you wanna really mix this and incorporate everything together. So I'm gonna work a little bit on that, and then I think I'm ready for another question, right? It's not too much work to stir and answer questions at the same time. I can swing it.
All right. So what happens to my RSP or other registered accounts if I need money from them?
Ooh, yeah, people sometimes do need money from their accounts, eh? So RSPs are interesting because that is all pre-tax dollar, right? So your RSPs is money that's never been taxed. And so you saved some tax money when you put it in your RSP, right? So whenever you take out money from your RSP, it is going to be taxed. And it'll be taxed in the year that you take it out, and it's going to be taxed as income. So I actually got a call today from somebody who unfortunately had to take their cat to the vet, and it cost about $1,000. So shouldn't have $1,000 hanging around. So what we're doing is taking $1,000 out of our RSP. Yeah, it's going to be income this year, so I'm just going to pay taxes on it. But inevitably, you're going to pay taxes on your registered accounts. Like whether it's while you're living or you die, you're going to pay taxes. The difference is while you're living, you're paying within your marginal tax rate every time you use the money. When you die, if you die with these accounts still intact, they're taxed at the or at your tax rate at the year of death, which is typically higher than your ongoing tax rate. So yeah, so it's doable. It's okay to take money out. It's just income. Now with the TFSA, it's a bit different, right? You can take money out of your TFSA. It's not considered income because that's already been taxed, right? Like that TFSA money was taxed and then you invested it. So you can take that out whenever. You just can't, if you've maxed out your contribution room, which right now it's $69,500 principal amount, if you max that out, and you take like $10,000 out right now, and then in November, so it's October right now, and then November I say, well, I got that $10,000 again, I'm gonna put it back in. No. you have to wait until your contribution room opens up again. The CRA doesn't like for you to just go ahead and replace that money because it's considered another principal deposit, which is interesting. So you would wait until the next year to just put the money back in. That's it. But it's not considered income. Super easy to take money out of your TFSA.
So there's limits to how much you can contribute, right? So how much can I contribute to my registered accounts, and is there somewhere where I could find that information?
Definitely. So we all love getting mail from the CRA, and we all open it and we read it intently, right? So that's on your notice of assessment from the CRA, which is what comes after you've done your taxes. It's also, you can find it on my account on the CRA site. So you can see your contribution limits for your RSP and for your TFSA on there. Keep in mind though that if you contributed earlier in the year to your TFSA or RSP that same year, you have to deduct that yourself. The CRA doesn't do their accounting until the next year. So let's say, earlier this year I put $2,000 into my TFSA. Well, that's up to me to remember. So you can get that room right from there. Also, if you don't want to go through any of those avenues, just ask the person who did your taxes. Right? Simple email, phone call.
And how much can I contribute?
So that's individual when it comes to an RSP, but with the TFSA, if you've never had a TFSA before, you can have $69,500 of principal room available to you if you've never had one. Now, each year that goes up with the TFSA. So next year, potentially, it'll go up by 6,000, and then you could put up to 75,000 in that TFSA. So, there's, it's important to actually know your contribution limits and play within them. Play within your limits. Oh, so here we are. We're getting a boil here. And what we're trying to achieve with these pralines is a candy boil. So some people use a thermometer to see if it's at candy boil temperature. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I just, kind of swish it around while it boils. Again, it's at a medium-high heat here, and I'm leaving it there. So I'm just kind of letting it go until I can tell that everything is nicely incorporated. And what I'm doing is just kind of squashing these bubbles as I go here, keeping it active. Because otherwise, it's not going to work out for you. So pralines are super simple in their ingredients. Making them, you actually have to pay attention to them. And the best way to know if your pralines are ready to kind of set, so what we're doing is making this praline mixture here, is to see if it covers a spoon. So if I were to stick a spoon in here, will it stick to it?
It's starting to smell really good.
Aw, thanks. Yeah, they smell so good. These are my dad's favorite. His favorite thing. So I'm making these because it's Owen's birthday tomorrow and he loves them too. Yeah. So I'm sure they'll be gone within moments, maybe. So I'm grabbing a spoon here. Simple. This is a normal spoon. Sticking it in here. And look at that. It's ready. So I'm turning it off. I want to show you. It's, it's right on there. It's sticking to it. Yeah, it's going to fall off a little bit, whatever. You don't want it to be rock hard because soon we're going to be incorporating some ingredients. So I'll show you that in a minute. So we're happy with this. It's nice and boiled. I'm good over here.
Ask another question.
I think so. So this is the time now where we're going to let this sit for 10 minutes. So it's 2:40. here we are. Should I show you?
Yeah.
It's all boiled and smelling really good. I wish we had smell-o-vision, but we don't.
Yeah.
Or like, you know what would be really cool? See-through pots and pans.
Oh yeah.
Like clear, so you can see all the stuff. Anyway, maybe if you're watching somebody who can invent that, you should do that. Maybe you work for Corning Glass. Hey, the new invention of the year.
You heard it here first.
So now is maple syrup time. So our pecans look like they've absorbed all that yummy, yummy vanilla. And I can't believe it's only a teaspoon we put in, but I think stick to that measurement, a teaspoon. So it calls for 3 tablespoons of maple syrup. And I don't even know really why I put this in. I think it tastes good. I don't know what it tastes like without it. And I don't know what happens when you put in corn syrup. I think maybe it just makes it more sticky. I don't know. But anyway, like I said, I try not to be too fancy. Here we go. All right. So there. So now we're just going to kind of leave it alone for a bit. So what's up?
All right. So what kind of investments can my accounts hold?
Oh, yeah. So TFSA, this grinds my gears. Tax-free savings account. You go to the bank and they open a savings account and you have your TFSA in it, which is great. You're going to save on any taxes on the interest that you gained. So the gain on your investment, right? Let's say you have $50,000 in there and then it's worth $55,000. Well, you don't have to pay taxation on that $5,000 gain in the TFSA. Now, think about a savings account. I mean, what's a savings account rates right now? Like nominal? So what are you really saving in a TFSA? It should really be called a tax-free investment account, a TFIA, because you want to put your investments in there because then you're going to protect yourself from those gains. Yeah, you don't get a capital loss slip, but we're hoping we don't go there and it's more of a capital gain that you're dealing with. So dividend income is good in there. So you could do GICs if GICs rates are good, right? That's a good thing for your TFSA. Mutual funds are an option, a little risky. Segregated funds, that's what we use the most because you can actually put a death benefit guarantee on there for your estate. So you can play the market, you can not have to deal with a T-slip in that TFSA, you can name a beneficiary, that kind of stuff. So same thing with your RSPs. So the RSPs, you can have whatever in there. So when I talk to people about their accounts, I'll say, well, like what's your RSP invested in? And they'll say it's invested in RSP. And that's fine and dandy and very common answer because we've never been explained what our stuff is invested in. I mean, we hope we do a good job at Bowie Financial of explaining what you're investing in and hoping that you truly understand. And it's not your fault if you don't know. I mean, I'm not making fun of anybody who doesn't know because it's just so common. Financial literacy in Canada is so difficult.
They don't really teach it anywhere.
No, they don't teach it. The new curriculum is going to be teaching financial literacy grade 10.
Yeah.
But I feel like you almost need it like every 10 years, like really, because things change so much, right? The TFSA was brought in 2009. So lots of my senior clients don't really understand the benefit of a TFSA because they just didn't have that vehicle to use. So investments wise, things you can put into it, TFSA, RSP, you can GIC it, you can savings account, you can segregated funds, you can mutual funds, you can use stocks. So you actually have lots of options. It's just a vehicle for those investments.
do I have to work with a bank to have registered accounts?
No. So registered accounts, like a TFSA, RSP, LIRA, those can be with investment companies like ourselves. We're brokerage, and we deal with registered accounts all the time. So you don't have to go to the bank for those things. Yeah, you can come right to Bowie Financial.
Sweet.
Yeah. That's what we always like to hear. So this is thickening up as I go here. And it's starting to look good. So when I'm making my little swirlies here, I'm starting to see that it's sticking to the bottom of the pan. It's just getting a little bit heavier. And not that my pralines always work out great. I'm saying a little prayer in my head right now that they do. But once you make them a few times, like you'll get comfortable knowing what's the right consistency, right? So it's been 6 minutes that they've been hanging out here. One of the biggest questions I get about RSPs is when you have to riff them, you know? And some people don't realize that you can riff at any age. You have to riff. You have to make a choice about riffing by the time you're 71. You can start taking the income when you're 72. And if you have a younger spouse, you can use their birthday to lower the amount of income that you have coming in if you don't want to take a lot of income from your riff. But let's say you're younger and you have RSPs, but you've decided to stop working for one reason or another, right? But you need income. You can change that into a RIF if you want and get monthly income from it, and then you can change it back to an RSP. You can also just go ahead and take money from your RSP if you need to. So a lot of people think, well, I have to really wait. You should wait, sure, why not? But if you need the money, you can kind of access it whenever. So that's a big question that people ask me is, you know, oh, I'm waiting to riff, like I need the income. Well, why are you waiting? If, you know, especially if you're doing pension income splitting, you're over 65 or 64 as well, and you're doing pension income splitting on your taxes with your spouse, and you're taking money from your RSP. Well, if you converted that to a RIF, you could actually do pension income splitting with your spouse. And if you don't have a pension, you could take $2,000 each of that money totally tax-free. So yeah, talk to an accountant or an advisor. We have both of those things at our office about those snazzy little tricks. But there's no one way to do everything, right? It's the right way for you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everyone's so unique in their situation, but that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
And people just not realizing that they could have converted to a RIF, so they could take advantage of pension income splitting. We had some people get back, well, they didn't get it back, but when we did their calculation of how much tax they would have saved, if they had converted to a RIF instead of taking the money from their RSPs, it was significant. So it's worth it to get good advice. The older you get, like the more taxes and investments are commingled, and that's why we have a brokerage with tax advice and investment advice because they really do become quite commingled. So here we are. We're about 9 minutes. Like I said, I'm no perfectionist. So I'm going to take these lovely pecans here. I don't know, what are they called? Halved pecans?
I think so.
Yeah. And shove them in there.
I don't think I've ever seen a pecan.
Yeah, what does a whole pecan even look like? I guess you can fit it in your mouth, so they make them halves.
I don't know. Is that how they come out of the shell?
I don't know. Now that's a whole other thing. So after this, you should Google how pecans work.
Yeah. I will.
Yeah, that's what we're doing next. So, pralines. Pralines are an arm workout, and you better get a little workout because these are just full of sugar. So, you're going to be mixing these around for 2 to 3 minutes until they start to come together And when I say come together, that just means that they're cooling down, and so they're going to solidify. Now, I've made pralines that do not solidify, and it breaks my heart when that happens, but rest assured, your family will still eat them. Like, even if they have to eat them with spoons, yeah, everyone's gonna come and do that, so you're all good. Got your bases covered, as long as they're full of sugar and pecans in my household. They're gone. So yeah, so just a lot of stirring, and you know they're almost there when your arm starts to kind of get it cramped. You're like, oh, ow, this hurts. Yeah, okay. So rule of thumb is 2 minutes. Oh, I shouldn't say rule of thumb. That's a bad word. But general rule is 2 minutes. So should I tell them the rule of thumb?
Tell them the story.
Okay. So rule of thumb. The reason I shouldn't use it is because it's bad. So we were in Virginia. So we used to go there as a family. And that's actually where we first had pecan pralines. It's a very southern thing. Yeah, weird. Okay, so we're in Virginia, and my dad says something about a rule of thumb, and somebody pipes in and says, we shouldn't say that. Well, why? So it turns out rule of thumb is back in the day, and I don't know if this was in Canada too, but definitely in America, a man was allowed to hit his wife with a switch as long as it was not wider than his thumb. So I guess when you're looking for a husband back in that day, you look at their hand size first and then make a determination. Oh, you have baby hands. Perfect. Let's get married. So that's the rule of thumb. So that's why you shouldn't say it, because it kind of talks about abusing your spouse. Uncool. So yes, if you broke the rule of thumb, they put you in one of those little shame boxes, with your hands and your head in there. Yeah, so we learned that in Williamsburg, Virginia, where they have the best pecan pralines. I'm not knocking myself, but I mean, for real. And it's such a cool historic place. So another question I get about investments, accounts, registered accounts specifically, is what's this LIRA thing I have? What's this locked in account? So a LIRA is, when you look at it at the bank, sometimes it's going to say locked in Rrsp, or it'll say LIRA. On our stuff it says LIRA. So it's a locked in retirement account. And that's usually from a pension wind down and a job. So that has way more rules than any of the other accounts. Like you barring a financial hardship, you can't access that money in Ontario until you're 55. And then at that point, you're going to have the ability to choose what income you're going to take. But there is a minimum income you have to take, because again, this is non-tax money, so you're going to have to pay taxes on it when you use it. So there's a minimum, and then there's a maximum. So that's the only one with a maximum. And the reason is because it's meant for retirement savings. So that's why there's a maximum. They don't want you blowing it all at once. Just like you can't blow your pension all at once, right? So it actually makes total sense. All right. So these are pretty much ready, and I'm going to show you what I mean by this. Oh, what can we see here? So that's kind of what they look like. Now you don't want them to harden too much here, because then you're not going to be able to get them onto the parchment paper that we earlier discussed. So, parchment paper time. And plopping them onto the parchment paper is really fun. I just use 2 spoons. Good. So I've got 2 spoons, just normal. And as you can make them any size you want. I love that there's no exact measurement to these. You know, if you've been watching any of our shows, you'll know that I'm not a huge fan of exact measurements. And maybe that's what makes me a decent financial advisor, is that not everything is exactly the way the recipe says, right? Everybody's got a unique situation, and it's the same with food. You can kind of make it your own, customize things, make it what you want it to be. So yeah, I guess I do cooking the same way. So there we go. So now you're just going to keep on doing that until you have as many as you'd like to have. It says it makes about 20, but if you're making them this size, you're going to have more than that and a bunch of happy people in your life. And I hope yours turn out as well as mine did. Thank you.